welcome back to the Interest CPA Summer Book Club. This is our third installment in the Get Your Life Back series. We are talking about John Eldredge's book, Get Your Life Back. I'm Shannon DeBruyn. I'm the Client Experience and Marketing Manager for InSolutions, and I'm here with my good friend Shannon DeBruyn to talk about this book today. But first, I want to introduce Shannon a little bit. She is a lawyer, an Enneagram coach, and as part of her business that she owns with her husband, which is called Advanced Resources and Consulting, she's consulted with Fortune 100 companies, but most of all, she's my friend, and I'm just really excited to talk about this because Shannon was the first person to tell me about the 1 Minute Pause app before I even knew that there was a book. So thanks for coming and being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
So first, I wanted you to tell us the story of how you picked up Get Your Life Back.
Yeah. Well, I had been working with some of my clients on the idea of benevolent detachment, which we can talk about later, quite apart from reading it in Eldredge. But when I saw the book, I thought, oh, this has been kind of a stressful year for my husband. Maybe he needs the book. And so I gave it to him, and he really enjoyed it. And one day we were eating lunch, and he said, John Eldredge asks the question, when was the last time you felt carefree? And I thought, oh, maybe I need that book too. So he gave it to me, and I read it after that. And I really liked how Eldredge kind of explains the problem of where we are in this fast-paced, technology-driven world, and gave some practical ideas about how we can step back from some of that fast pace and really get back in touch with our hearts.
Yeah, I agree. I shared with Shannon that a couple of years ago, a friend said on Facebook that she found herself being very affected by posts about other people being sick or things happening elsewhere than where she was, and like she had to carry all those stories and burdens with her. And at the time, I thought, well, gosh, that's selfish to not like feel like you need to engage somehow or even feel sympathy to some degree. But in the old days, we wouldn't know about, like when we didn't have social media, we wouldn't know about what happened in Texas or, we would only know about what happened in our own communities. Yeah. So now I'm thinking maybe it's not so selfish.
Yeah, and that does lead us to the idea of benevolent detachment, which is a concept that Eldredge talks about in the book. It's this idea of living a little more lightly and a little more freely, but with kindness. So he asks the question, but wait a minute, like, aren't we supposed to care about all these things? All of the injustices that we see, all of the lack that we see in the world, the problems there are to solve. And like you were asking, he asks, isn't it selfish not to? But the conclusion that he comes to is, well, we can't carry all of those things because we're not God. And we can learn a healthy way of distancing ourselves from the things that entangle us while still bringing a loving and kind attitude toward that. So one small example of that in my home is, say, children who are in a bad mood. I have learned to say in my mind, your mood is not my mood. And so I'm not caring about their issue, but I'm establishing a pattern of healthy distance between me and their issue so that I can bring a loving attitude towards it. And this is a practice that we can carry into all of those contexts, social media especially, is to, bring a compassionate attitude toward it, but learn how to establish a healthy distance between me and that issue so that I'm not overly entangled in it. And I guess that was one of the ways that we talked about how I came to this book through my husband, was this idea as well of social media bringing an expectation that people have access to my life 24/7. When we first opened our consulting business and moved from Washington, D.C. to Traverse City, we kind of established a culture in our business that, yes, clients can have access to us all the time. I think it was partly because we felt so lucky to be doing work that we love in a place so beautiful that we kind of unconsciously felt like there had to be a cost to it. And so this 24/7 access where clients can text on a Friday night at 7 o'clock and expect to still have an answer that day, or they can expect to, even friends, tell you their problem that night, or ask for prayer, or just unload an issue like on Facebook. That creates a culture of things are tugging at me that are beyond my ability to carry or solve on a 24/7 regular basis. So I think that's why it's an important question that Eldredge asks, when was the last time you felt carefree? Well, with all of these pressures from social media and just our regular interactions in daily life, we need to be intentional about practices of unplugging and drawing beauty into our lives and making a distance between ourselves and the things that aren't really ours to carry.
And that's exactly the point of this book. There's so much goodness to pull out, so many pieces. Shannon and I have picked a few of them to touch on. So one of them we've already talked about is Benevolent Detachment. Another one is how to put transitions into our days. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Transitions is something that we really work on with our clients. So if I'm facilitating an experience, say a training experience at an office, we're going through something important together. They're digging in on maybe heart level issues or communication issues or teamwork issues. And then, so transformation is happening. And then we use the word re-entry for what it means to take what we did there and bring it back into our daily life. And I think this is a concept that everyone can use, not just teams in corporate settings, but moms and dads, people working in their basement office and coming upstairs to be with their families. Eldredge talks about the fact that we just run from one thing to the next, and we have an expectation that life has to be fast and things have to be accomplished and stuff has to get done. Well, if we take a kind few minutes to mark the transition between, say, my work experience and my home experience, that can bring a lot of the good that we accomplished at work into our life at home, and it can help us be more fully present in the next stage. So for example, one of the things that we talk about is making a close down routine at the end of my day at work, so that every day when I am ending my work day, say the last 15 minutes of that day, includes certain habits that tell my mind it's safe to end the workday. The things that I didn't accomplish will be here again tomorrow, and the goodness that I did accomplish can be celebrated for a moment before I walk to my car and go home to my family. In this pandemical age, we have transitioned some of that to, okay, before I go upstairs from my basement office, I'm going to do 1 or 2 or 3 things that can mark the end of this activity and celebrate the beginning of this one. I think you were telling us a good story the other day about the lack of transition sometimes and how that can impact you. Being on the phone and being with kids and doing this activity all at once.
Yes. Yeah, especially, so like I said in our previous video, I work upstairs in a spare bedroom, and kids will come upstairs, or I'll pause to go nurse my infant. And so there's a lot of bleeding into the workday, and that can be hard sometimes. But I this idea of a transition has really helped, and I've started writing down the big 3 things that I want to do for the next day, and physically shutting off the screens of my computer and closing my planner so that when I come back to my computer, all the programs are minimized. My desk is settled, and I don't come to work feeling like frazzled already. So that has helped me a lot.
And a transition time is a gift to the people that you're headed towards as well. So maybe rather than listening to the news in my car on the way home from the office, I could just be silent, or I could choose something to celebrate that I accomplished from that workday, or choose something that I'm looking forward to in terms of whatever is going to happen in the home in the evening. Just that little bit of a buffer from all the busyness can really help us to be more present in the moment that we're in.
Yeah. I hadn't thought to share this previously, but Shannon and I both use the Full Focus Planner. And if you are interested in building something into your day to keep track of, like the big 3 things that you want to accomplish, and a morning startup routine and a shutdown routine, that would be a really good tool to look into. It's by Michael Hyatt company, and it's called the Full Focus Planner. Okay, unplugging is the next thing that we wanted to talk about. And it kind of fits in with the transition, because one of the things John talks about is when you're moving from work to, say, dinner time with the family, is perhaps leaving your phone charging in another room so that you don't bring it into dinner with you, and finding other ways to unplug from your phone or from technology.
Yeah, one of the things that we have seen across the board with people this year is an increased use of technology rather than a decreased use. Of course, kids doing school on Zoom and all of the, I mean, we found that we booked way more meetings during a workday than we ever did in the past, because there was no travel time. It was all just one after another. And then we're doing audio books so that we can accomplish something more while we're doing these extra things.
And even on a personal level, I think to some degree it helped us feel more connected for sure. Even if maybe it actually wasn't good connection. But we were on social media, we were on FaceTime, et cetera, much more. And it's not all bad. Some of that really was good enough connection, because it's what we needed for the time. But now that we're transitioning into a little more gathering in person, a little more being more open, we do need to think thoughtfully about how we can release some of that. And even we have a rule in our home that phones can't be visible even from the dinner table, because studies have shown that even the presence of a phone that isn't answered during a meal, it draws attention away from the present moment, and it creates anxiety, because it's the implicit memory of your body is knowing there's responsibilities in there, there's pain in there, there's attention in there. So really unplugging in terms of not even having it in your field of view is one good thing to do. But we were saying in another conversation, there are positive benefits to technology, one of which is the 1 Minute Pause app that Eldredge talks about in the book, which kind of repurposes technology for this transition that we were just talking about. I had a client that I suggested the 1 Minute Pause to, and Eldredge suggests that you can set a timer on your phone to remind yourself to take a breather and do the pause. And so the client set 2 timers during the day, one mid-morning and one mid-afternoon, and the next time he reported back to me how much he hated that timer and how much he resented that 1 Minute Pause app. And I asked some curious questions of that person, because if your life is such that you resent even gifting yourself 1 minute in the mid-morning and 1 minute in the afternoon, then we need to be reevaluating some things.
And one of the curious questions I asked that client was, how much time do you spend looking at your phone for purposes that are not directly related to your work? And he kind of smiled and, well, there was time.
Yeah.
There was a minute that he could take back from those other activities to gift himself quiet and breath and stillness and connection to his heart level.
Yeah. So the last point that we want to touch on is about beauty and getting outside. And Eldredge says on page 76, the average person now spends 93% of their life indoors. This includes your transportation time in car, bus, or metro. 93%, such a staggering piece of information. We should pause for a moment and let the tragedy sink in. That is very sad.
Wow.
And in the recent months here, I have felt, or I've realized that there have been days, like 2 days in a row, where I wasn't getting outside, and I started to crave it. I started to feel like I've got to get out of this house. And then once I did get out, I didn't want to go back inside, and I couldn't put my finger on why that was.
Yeah.
But he made such a good point that we are living in the artificial, that when we're inside, everything is like this, you know, it's not real, it's not living.
Yeah.
And being outside in beauty makes such a difference.
Yeah, and didn't we all learn that together last year during lockdown, right? When we were told we must stay inside. Everyone got a real sense of how too much inside is not good for the soul. And it does connect us to the conversation we were just having about social media in terms of, you know, the scrolling and the distraction. Eldredge makes a really interesting point about the difference between looking for relief and looking for restoration. And relief are those things, scrolling or eating or alcohol or you know, entertainment. Those are things that we look to for relief from the pressures of the world.
Like buffering from real life.
Right. But getting outside and putting my hand on a tree or noticing the flower, or we live in a beautiful place where there's easy access to the woods or the water or the sunshine or even just the grass. Those are things that bring actual restoration to our bodies, to our minds, to our soul. So developing a habit of making sure every day I'm spending some time observing beauty or spending time in nature is one of the great ways, simple ways, very time efficient ways to be able to bring ourselves back from the artificial to the real.
Yeah. I've been trying to make a conscious effort to at least walk once a day. Shannon's very good at this. Well, and you have Barry, her
My
cute
dog
little dog.
demands it. It's a helpful thing.
Yeah.
John Eldredge talks about a friendly dog being one of those joy-fueling elements in life.
And another thing that he has mentioned has been to, on purpose, look for beauty.
Yes.
And I've started noticing that more, noticing the daisies growing wildly by the side of the road, or the light lining a cloud. And not just seeing it, but like he says, taking it in and letting the beauty restore you.
Yeah.
Which I get that can sound a little touchy-feely or whatnot, but it's important. It really is.
And it doesn't take much effort, and it's free.
Yeah. I'm curious, have you found something in nature that you feel like your soul loves, like maybe God created it just for you?
Yeah. Trees is mine for sure. Being in the woods anywhere is my absolute favorite place to be. Yeah. And I think it's because trees aren't alone. You know, their roots are actually a system that relies on on each other and sends messages through that. And I think that is kind of one of the overarching themes of this book is isolation isn't good for us. We are all connected whether we recognize it or not. And so I think that's just a sort of natural, powerful reminder to me, being in the woods.
I personally love taking a walk in a snowstorm. And I think people must think I'm crazy, especially people up here, that I love the snow. But I feel like I can connect with myself and with God and went out in a quiet snowstorm.
Beautiful.
We've talked about transitions, unplugging, and getting outside and enjoying beauty. And we just want to challenge you this week to try to find one of those things to connect with yourself and find some restoration through implementing one of those pieces. We hope this has been encouraging to you, and thanks again, Shannon, for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for listening.